Hey guys, welcome back to the MCU HQ, and it is June 8th, 2022. You know what that means. It's the release of Miss Marvel on Disney+. I had the chance to watch it last night when it came out, which made me happy because I haven't had the chance to do that with some of the other shows, but now I'm really tired. So I'm going to review it for you guys now, and as usual with all my show reviews, I will start non-spoiler and tell you when I get into spoilers if you have not had the chance to watch it yet. It's fair to say that most of the pressure for this show landed right on the shoulders of Iman Vellani, who plays the title character, because this is her first ever acting gig. So a lot of people were like, they were wondering how she was going to do because there was no previous work of hers. Well, I am very happy to say that she did great in this episode. I know barely anything about Kamala Khan in the comics. She's not a character whose stories I've read, but I'll tell you what, she's like my go-to character in LEGO Marvel superheroes too. I know that she has stretchy powers, we'll talk about that, and I know she's an Avengers fangirl, mainly to Captain Marvel, but that's pretty much all I know about the character. Any of the little nitty-gritty things, I couldn't tell you. So this show is really my first introduction to Kamala Khan. And as much as I like her, I couldn't help but notice that she seemed a lot like Kate Bishop. There were some scenes in this episode where it felt like a Marvel intern running down the hall was carrying both the Hawkeye scripts and the Miss Marvel scripts and dropped them. There's some scenes in here where I'm like, if you just replace Iman Vellani with Haley Steinfeld, there's no difference. But Iman Vellani does great. I think it also helps that she basically is a real-life Kamala Khan. She's a massive fangirl. Just listen to her in interviews. It's pretty fun. And before I even continue, I need to mention something. I woke up to see that this show is getting review bombed on IMDb. It's got like 1 star, and a bunch of people say that we don't need this show, and they're not going to watch it because they see no reason to watch it. And their reasons always seem to be racism. So, just a little PSA. If you guys are review bombing a show about a Muslim superhero, if you guys are refusing to watch the show based on a Muslim superhero, not because you're not interested in it, that's fine, but because you don't like this woke direction Marvel's going in, 2 things. First, Marvel's always been woke, you just chose to ignore it. And second, it means you're a fucking racist. And there's been some controversy over Miss Marvel's powers, because the powers in the show are not the powers in the comics. There is an aspect of the powers from the comics they keep intact, but for the most part they change it, and essentially what they do is they make Miss Marvel a Green Lantern. Now, I like Green Lantern, but I don't know if I necessarily like Green Lantern in place of Miss Marvel. Marvel did do something with Green Lantern before DC though, and by God are her powers gorgeous. Like, as much as I wish she still had the normal Miss Marvel powers and they didn't change them, oh man, when those powers are used, they are beautiful on screen. And Kamala is a very relatable character in this episode right off the bat, and I think part of the reason that works is because this sort of dilemma that she's going through in this episode is something a lot of people, there was a phase where a lot of people went through this same thing Miss Marvel's going through, and I liked how that was portrayed, because superhero things, you know, for good reason, never have to focus on that. It was cool for once to be like, that's something I remember doing. You know, there's this thing she's going through with her parents that's super relatable. And speaking of parents, her parents, and I guess her whole family, gets a lot of play in this show. They have a lot of screen time. Her dad, I really liked her dad. And her brother was just like a teddy bear. Like, I wanted to give her brother a hug. And the actress who played Kamala's mother knocked it out of the park. She did really good. The whole family did good, but her mom had the most scenes with Kamala. And there was one scene towards the end of the episode that was insanely well acted between her and Iman Vellani and very well written. I was very impressed with that scene. And sometimes the parents would annoy me. Not because they were badly written, but quite the opposite. They were so well written, and but some of the things they did, I was like, no, why are you doing that? The only character I wasn't sold on was Kamala's friend Bruno, I believe his name was. Because I felt like he didn't really have much of a character of his own. He was the character who just kind of showed up, delivered an important piece of information, and then left, and then showed up a few scenes later to deliver an important piece of information, and then left. He's Kamala's friend, and so the two of them are hanging out a lot, and they do have friendly banter, and it is cool to see her have a friend and have a little guy she can go on the adventure in this episode with. But I hope he has more to do besides just give info and leave. And while there's great talent in front of the camera, there's also just as good, if not better, talent behind the camera. This episode was directed by Adil El Arbi and Bilal Falal. I really am sorry if I mispronounced any of those names. And these guys are also slated to do Batgirl. I know this isn't a DC channel, but after seeing what they did with this episode, I am very pumped to see how they handle Batgirl. They injected so much life and personality and charisma into this episode, and they moved the camera in ways most people wouldn't even think to do. There's a shot of Kamala laying on the sofa, and the camera move they do when she does it, I was mind blown. I was like, oh my god, I never even would have thought of doing that when a character gets on the sofa. When a character is texting someone, they find a creative way to display what they're saying on screen without just having text bubbles. If you've seen the music video for Sunflower from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, that's pretty much what they do here. Stuff will appear on walls, and there will be an open sign, and then the open sign is replaced with a sad face as their reaction to the text. It's so clever, and none of that was scripted. That was entirely Adil and Bilal's idea, and I'm so glad Marvel let them do that, because it makes for something so unique and so inventive and so different than what we've seen before. This episode is the best directed Disney Plus episode we've gotten, because it feels like these guys put their stamp on it. It feels like they really wanted to put something new and creative out there, and I love the way they directed it. And 50 minutes for this episode is too damn long. So usually for these shows, it's no, be longer, give me more. For this one, it was the opposite. I felt like they could have taken some stuff out. I actually found myself checking the time left in the episode a couple times throughout the episode, because I was like, man, Marvel, I'm really loving this, but I feel like we need to wrap up the story now. And I hope the other episodes aren't like that, because if I start to feel that these episodes are dragging on too much, then I'm just going to be upset that they didn't make a movie. And there are so many MCU references in this show. For people who took issue with the fact that Moon Knight made 0 MCU references throughout its show, this more than makes up for it. This first episode has so many references and name drops and Easter eggs to the larger MCU. Kamala and her friend go to a place that's just littered with Avengers stuff, so you'll definitely get your fill of that in this show if you wanted more of that in Moon Knight. And lastly, New Jersey, where Kamala Khan lives, does feel like a character, more so than a lot of cities do in superhero movies. You have her neighborhood, the stores she goes to, her house, her school. It all feels like it's a character. So when the time comes for her to actually have to save it, hopefully you can feel some of those stakes. Because I know there was one place she went to, and I was like, damn, I'm really feeling the love for her neighborhood and the people that live in it. And the Muslim aspect also does get a lot of play in this episode too, and they kind of throw that in, and it feels like there's this whole world that you really start to care about. There is a post-credit scene, by the way, that teases some sort of antagonist we will be getting in this show. And I think the post-credit scene hypes itself up much more than it needs to. But it was kind of funny when I saw certain characters show up. I'm like, you are here. Despite feeling a little long, the first episode of Ms. Marvel did its job. It made me like Kamala Khan and the world around her while also setting up the superhero she will later become. And although I had some issues with this premiere episode, I cannot wait to see where they take this show as it goes. Alright, that's my non-spoiler thoughts on the first episode of Ms. Marvel. If you have not seen the episode, go watch it and then come back and watch my spoiler thing. For the people who have seen it, I'm going over spoilers. I'm not doing a play-by-play. I'm just talking about certain things I want to expand upon from my non-spoiler review. So let's hop into spoilers. Let's talk about Avengers Con. So I saw the opening cutscene of that really crappy Avengers game, and then I decided I didn't feel like watching more of it. I decided to watch something else, and Avengers Con was in this, and I was like, I recognize that. That was in the Avengers game. Let's hope you do it better. They did. I'll say that. I think it was clever to make it at Camp Lehigh, where the first Avenger was born. And hearing the Star Spangled Man on the plane as they walked in made me miss Cap. Like, I love me some Sam Wilson, but just Steve was different. I loved Steve. Okay, let's talk about some of the family stuff, because I mentioned that she has a dilemma here that's super relatable and something going on with her parents, and something everyone who, has been a teenager can relate to, and that's the whole thing of, like, independence, letting them go do something on their own and trying to be protective versus letting them go do stuff on their own. Her parents won't let her go to Avengers Con, saying it's some crazy party, and then they eventually change their mind because Kamala's brother talks to him, and her brother's very persuasive apparently. And they're like, okay, we'll let you go, but you have to go with your dad and you have to go dressed as the Hulk. And then she gets all pissed and gets mad at him and then makes her dad cry. And I was upset because I liked the dad. Then she sneaks out to go to Avengers Con. Kamala's friend is like, hey, you kind of need to implant some of yourself in your cosplay. So she takes like the bangle thing from her house before she goes, puts it on the stage, and then goes into the Upside Down. So her power, she like starts using these powers, and she's like shooting these energy blasts everywhere, and she accidentally saves people and accidentally hurts some people, and then she gets home at 11:11, way after she planned on getting home, and then there's a very well-written conversation with her mother to end the episode. The family drama aspect was probably my favorite part of the episode because the writing in those moments just excelled so much. I think the best writing of the episode was on display, especially, as I mentioned, towards that end conversation with her mother. And most of the scenes that reminded me of Kate Bishop was pretty much most of it. Like, if you think of the scenes when Kate Bishop is fangirling and stuff, that's pretty much how Ms. Marvel acts in this show. And then some of the other scenes are like how Kate Bishop acts later in the series. So she is very much like Kate Bishop. I don't know if they're similar in the comics because I have not read any of their comics. So anyone who has, let me know down in the comments if Kate Bishop and Kamala Khan are similar in the comics. But in this show, she was very similar to a character I saw a few months ago. Did you think Kate Bishop was at Avengers Con? Because, like, I feel like she would have been there. I know she is an Avenger now, pretty much, so there's no reason for her to go to Avengers Con, but I don't know. I feel like she was there figuring out how to brand Hawkeye better. Okay, so let's talk about the post-credits scene for this episode. Because there was no hint of a main villain in this episode, but there was a hint of an antagonist, and that's Agent Cleary in the Department of Damage Control. Agent Cleary, of course, being the guy who arrested Peter Parker in Spider-Man No Way Home, is now back to bring in Kamala Khan, and like the hype music as they hyped up his reveal of, here's Agent Cleary. I'm like, I liked Agent Cleary in No Way Home. I thought the actor did a good performance. I kind of like that character, but we are really hyping up a character that pretty much no one's gonna remember here. Oh, and can I just say that the final shot of Kamala laying in bed with the, like, energy going around her hand and then saying cosmic with a massive smile is the perfect ending, and it's so representative of, like, the actual fans of the franchise. And I know that's what I felt when I saw the original Iron Man. So it's cool that Kevin Feige and team found a way to capture that for this show. It took me back to a simpler time. Well, there you guys go. That's all I have to talk about Miss Marvel today. What did you guys think of the first episode? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.